Welcome back to Washington Watch. Evan Fowler with Bot Radio Network sitting in today for Tony. Glad to be here and glad you're with us. Stick with us for the rest of the program. We have some great topics. If you weren't with us at the very beginning, some really informative information. And here's the next one. The House of Representatives is preparing to vote on the so-called Global Respect Act, also known as H.R. 3485. That would enable visa bans against foreign individuals accused of violating the rights of LGBT identifying persons and require the U.S. State Department to designate a senior officer to track violence and discrimination against LGBT identifying individuals abroad. As my next guest will share, the bill's not only unnecessary, more importantly, it will inevitably derail the protection of foundational human rights with which these new LGBT, quote, rights will be seen to conflict. It sounds pretty confusing, but joining me now to unpack this is Mary Beth Waddell. She's Director of Federal Affairs for Family and Religious Liberty here at the Family Research Council. Mary Beth, welcome.
Thanks. Great to be here with you.
All right. So in the intro there, I was kind of confused myself. No doubt our listeners and viewers were a little bit confused because the Respect Act, Global Respect Act, sounds like a good thing. So tell us what it is and why it's not such a good thing.
Absolutely. You know, unfortunately, a number of these bills are giving wonderful titles that really belie what it actually does. You already noted the semantics of the bill, and what that actually means is that it would really inappropriately reorient our U.S. foreign policy to disproportionately focus on LGBT policies and quote-unquote LGBT rights, which could potentially alienate allies and displace attention from where it needs to go on religious liberty and other human rights abuses. As you were even just discussing, you know, the State Department should be focusing on the fallout of the withdrawal from Afghanistan. You have the Olympics that are highlighting the atrocities against the Uyghurs right now. You have Russia that, you know, could be invading Ukraine. These are the issues that should be the focus of the State Department, not winning political points on LGBT agenda.
So you've kind of touched on a couple of the bad points, but why is the bill actually dangerous, would you think?
But up to this point, there has really been large bipartisan support for religious liberty, particularly internationally. You know, when it comes to the domestic side, we've seen the squabbles, we've seen the disconnect, but we've not seen that internationally so much. And now this is an indicator of that happening. You know, the Bipartisan International Religious Freedom Act of 1998 was passed to really elevate religious liberty in our foreign policy. And yet here we are potentially targeting our allies in the accompanying committee report. Poland was called out, as was Hungary, two of our very important allies in Europe. And you currently right now have a Finnish MP that is facing charges, criminal charges, for basically speaking truth on the issues of human sexuality. And things like this are actually going to embolden actions similar to those against this MP, and it could really have devastating effects.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit more about that Finnish MP. I've read a couple of stories about it. Give us a bit more detail on that.
Right. Well, it's the Finnish MP as well as a bishop. The MP wrote a piece basically explaining her views and the church's views and what they should be on the issues of human sexuality. And that has been claimed to be a hate crime. And so now the Finnish government is actually targeting her and the bishop who republished her piece. And basically, it was just a restatement of traditional beliefs when it comes to human sexuality, as well as scientific fact.
So I'm just kind of going out on a limb here, but it sounds like the Global Respect Act would sort of put that kind of thing on steroids, maybe not only here, but around the world. Is that a correct assumption?
It very well could. You know, it sends an indication that the United States is going to be less likely to get involved potentially in these types of situations. And with this being a visa sanction, you know, if this MP were to try to seek asylum for religious persecution, would she be granted that visa? You know, it calls that into question.
And it does, in particular, I think one of our biggest concerns is the conflict that it would have with religious rights, correct?
Absolutely. You've seen what that has done domestically, and it could have severe effects internationally and on the global stage if we begin to divide and detract from religious liberty.
One of the things we always like to do when we talk about an issue or a problem like this is also present a potential solution. So what can listeners and viewers do? Is there something that folks who are watching can do to help prevent this thing from getting passed?
Absolutely. The vote is tomorrow morning. Around 10:30 is when the vote should start, but vote series lasts a while. So before tomorrow morning, we have an alert set up where individuals can let their congressman know that they oppose this bill and want them to vote no. They can go to frcaction.org/truehumanrights. That's frcaction.org/truehumanrights to let their representative know how they feel about this bill.
So this is in the House side right now, correct?
Correct. This is over in the House side and would still need to be passed by the Senate.
Okay, and we'll give that. I want you to give that URL, that address, one more time here in just a minute before we leave this segment.
Sure.
If members of Congress really wanted to do something to promote human rights, what are some of the other things they could be doing? Have about 30 seconds here, Mary Beth.
Getting involved in what's going on with this Finnish MP. You know, a letter has been sent that a number of members signed on to, urging the ambassador at large on international religious freedom to get involved. There's a current letter that is being led by Chip Roy to the MP and the bishop to give them support on this. And so those little actions can go a long way in these real consequences. And that URL, once again, is frcaction.org/truehumanrights.
Very good. frcaction.org, and there it is on the screen, /truehumanrights. It would be good to get involved. Mary Beth, thanks a lot. Good to have you.
Thank you.